Hello, my name is Katie, and welcome to the SOLITA podcast, Notes on Tears and Chaos. I love a good long title, and I think it really fits with what I'm trying to do here. I am alone, and that's how I'm planning to do this podcast, just by myself, with my thoughts, and just kind of reflect on all the mistakes that I've just been making for the past year and from the past 22 years of my life. And I will be honest that I was rehearsing how to speak into this microphone and talk in front of the camera. And I was doing really good. I thought I was doing so good. I was like, wow, I'm like a natural. I'm a professional. I can do this. And now that I'm actually recording, it's really nerve-wracking. And I have restarted this a bunch of times, but we're going to get through it. And hopefully I can figure everything out. So I will be upfront. I just finished having a mental breakdown like 10 minutes ago. And my eyes are probably still a little puffy and my nose might be a little bit red and I might sniffle a little bit because I literally just had to wipe the tears away, wash my face, and then set everything up because I'm very adamant about starting this podcast despite everything else going on in my life. So I thought that little intro was fitting for what I wanted to talk about on the first episode of the podcast, which is that I am not at my best. I am struggling in every aspect of my life. So let's talk about what is currently going on. Well, I read this tweet on the Twitter, if you weren't aware. And it says, it's by this username, Eggshell Friend. And then the person goes, there should be a word for when nothing brings you joy and you have no motivation and everything you love feels meaningless to you. And I responded and I was like, bestie, I think this is depression. Speaking from personal experience, not to self-diagnose, but it sounds a lot like it. And all of the replies were pretty much the same. Everyone's saying like, girl, that's depression. And some people were taking it very seriously. They were sending her self-help, helplines or whatever those little hotlines that you call. And bestie, you should really look into this. Take care of yourself, blah, blah, blah. I feel like her tweet was a little satirical. Clearly she knows what she's going through. And she just wanted to make a little fun little joke about it. Like, hey, I might have depression. But this one person understood the assignment. He understood the sarcasm and he responded, it's called a flop era. And it is painful to admit that I am in my flop era. It's not just a singular flop era. I have gone through multiple flop eras in my life. You could say that my entire life is a flop era. But that's a lot of negative self-talk that I'm trying to stop doing. But I think it's a perfect description because how embarrassing, when you have a fave and you have to admit, I love her. I want her to do the best that she possibly can. I want her to succeed, but whatever she just released, a flop. It's a flop. And so you kind of just have to admit to yourself that, I am doing very shitty. And it's that stage where you are very sad and that you need help, but it just feels like way too much. And so that's how I feel. I feel like I'm in my depressive flop era. And, the obvious answer would be to be like, why? Why are you sad? Why don't you just do what makes you happy? Obviously, that's the answer. If you're sad, do what makes you happy. But the thing is, I don't know what makes me happy. I don't really know who I am. So let's look back to a year ago. Okay. So a year ago, or over a year ago, a year and a half ago, I had recently moved to Orlando and I made the mistake of getting involved with someone as soon as I got here. And because of that situation, I was totally focused on it and I thought everything was going well. I was like, oh my God, I'm prospering here. The move is a little hard for my family, but I think I'm really prospering here. This is what I needed all along, was to move. And then a month in, I got my heart broken. And it sucked. It was quite possibly the worst pain that I have ever been through, physically and emotionally. It sucked to not go too into it right now, but very unexpected. A month into this new city that I don't know anything about, and I'm already like heartbroken. So obviously, what do you do when you get your heart broken? You start your healing era. And I don't think I've ever gone through the healing era or like even started it, because I had this really bad habit of going from one guy to another guy and focusing all my attention on guys. But now it was like, I am so emotionally destroyed. I cannot focus on another man right now. So I focused on myself, and it was very, very hard, but it was very, very good. Sorry, that's a really bland word, but it did feel like a healing era, because I did feel very alone. I felt like, oh my God, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. Like, you have to go through all this pain to finally start feeling good and better about yourself. And so I was waking up early. I was waking up at 7 a.m. Can you believe that? I was getting a head start on my day. I was going to the gym. I you know how it is. I never really was very consistent at the gym. I always felt out of place there. I always feel very underdeveloped for some reason. But I was going like 3-4 times a week in a row. Like, who is she? I was actually doing that. And I was trying out different hobbies. I had gotten a coloring book, which I soon learned that coloring was not for me. It's kind of boring. But it actually helped with my anxiety a little bit after getting out of that situation. And I was just starting to do new things like rock climbing, and I was just figuring out who I was, It was all to figure out, who the hell am I when I take myself away from everybody else? When I'm literally just by myself, who am I? And what do I like to do? And what am I passionate about? And so that lasted about 2 months. It was a very good 2 months, I will tell you that. Like, I really started to feel a lot better about myself. I was still crying, I was still heartbroken, but I was starting to feel like I'm actually taking the steps to healing, and I'm going to prosper from this. Without going too into the specific details, that era obviously did not last very long, 2 months. I started focusing all of my energy onto another person. I met a group of people, which then meant that I transferred all of my energy into one specific person. And now I'm wondering again, like, is he going to text me? Is he going to reach out to me? Is he going to ask me to hang out? Like, what is he doing? And my mind just became all about this guy that I didn't know very well at the time. And, I should have known, like, hey, don't do it. And I thought I had control of the situation, but I didn't. But that's probably like another story. But that's a really bad habit of mine, is that I place my happiness on other people. And that's obviously not okay. That puts a lot of pressure onto everybody else. And it's like, yeah, you can be happy with people, but to have them be your like only source of happiness is very rough, because I at least know, or have at least experienced, that I am not always going to have those people. A lot of people have friendships that last lifetimes, and they have these group of people that they can count on. But for me personally, girl, it's like 1 or 2 people, like during like a certain period of time. Sometimes it's like different people, but it's usually the same amount, like 1-2 people. And it sucks, especially if I'm someone that really depends on people. And so now, flash forward to a year later, I am currently at a very low point in my life. It's one of those times where I know that I am in a very bad place, a very bad and dangerous place. And your mind can play very bad tricks on you and can make you feel completely worthless. And in these times, my mind has definitely gone to very, 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 very dark places. Stuff that I cannot talk about out loud. I've probably told like one or two people like how I actually feel. And that sounds really bad. Like, please do not call the psych ward. I'm fine. I'm good. But, you know, at least I'm admitting it. I'm like, I know that I'm in a very bad and dangerous place. Like a year later, I know that. And this is also the times when I give in and I start to seek out that help that I probably desperately need, like therapy. And if I was a very popular podcaster or influencer or whatever, if you knew my name, if I got the sponsors, this is where the BetterHelp sponsor would be, but not yet. Anyways, therapy. The thing with therapy is the only therapy that I have available to me now is through my university that I attend, because it's included in your tuition. Apparently you get a certain amount of free sessions. However, I didn't really like it that much. It was okay, but I wish I was able to go more often. When I was going, it was like once a month, because that's the only available times that my therapist had. And that's not okay, because girl, I need to see you like every week, because a lot happens in a month, especially at the time that I was going through a lot of emotional turmoil. So, you know, the resources that I have are very limited when it comes to like seeking out help and everything. Because therapy is also not an inexpensive option. You know, it's very costly, and it's not always there. It's not always an option, unfortunately. So then it's like, okay, well, what else can I do to fix this, you know? And obviously the answer would be to like figure out what makes me happy. And that's usually the advice that people give a lot is, you know, you just have to be happy with yourself. And I've given that advice to people many times, plenty of times. I've told people like, yeah, you just have to be happy with being by yourself, figure out what you like to do, and da-da-da-da. It's really not that simple, because I don't have a job. And so I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but in order to do a lot of things, like a lot of hobbies, you need to pay money. This microphone costs money. Going to the gym, thankfully, again, it's free with my tuition at the university. But if I didn't have that, where am I going to go to the gym? How am I going to get exercise? Just by going outside with equipment that I have to buy? Like everything costs money. It sucks, but it's true. And so I didn't have the resources to do that. I didn't have the resources to just explore and figure out what makes me happy, because it was very, very tight financially. And so it all comes down to this podcast. I've wanted to do this podcast for over a year, since the first heartbreak happened, because mind you, I had a YouTube channel back in the good old 2020, and I had plenty of YouTube channels before that, and they were all flops. Did I really invest so much energy into them? Probably not, but honestly, good thing they did flop, because the most recent one was so boring. Like I try to watch back those videos, and they're so bad. And maybe they would have gotten better if I had kept going, but I highly doubt it. Oh. I gotta cross my legs. Anyways, I wanted to do this podcast for a year. So it's like, damn, what took so long? And, you know, I could say a bunch of stuff of like, I had to make sure that I had the right name and I had the right like description, and I figured out what I was going to do and talk about and blah, blah, blah. Like I had a list of things that I wanted to talk about, and I've added onto it for the past year, and it makes me really excited. But I always push it back for several reasons, which is all just like excuses, basically saying that I'm not ready to start a podcast. In the very beginning, when I was first thinking about it, I was like, I'm going to start it when I'm healed, when I've gone through this little healing journey and I'm finally healed and I know what I'm talking about and I actually practice what I'm talking about, then I can actually do it. Because if I get on here and I start trying to give you all this advice about don't do this, don't let that guy do that, and I don't follow that advice myself, then I'm a hypocrite. And that's exactly what it felt like, is that I'm not ready because I'm not fully healed. But to tell you the truth, I don't think that I will ever actually be healed. I don't think there's ever going to be a time in my life where I'm just going to be like perfectly sane. I do think it is possible for me to just be in a point in my life where I'm fine and I'm not in these very dangerous places anymore, but completely healed, I don't think so, because I don't know everything and I'm not supposed to know everything, and I can't expect that my life is just going to be perfect at one point. It's not. There's going to be like emotional turmoil a lot, especially for me. I'm pretty sensitive and I am very emotional, and I take things to heart a lot. And so that's just kind of like my nature, and I could try to unlearn that, but it's just, at some point, it's just the root of who I am, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but at least that being aware of it, it's it can help, being aware that, you know, hey, I take things a little too personally, but I don't think that I will ever be healed, and that's fine, but I can be pretty close to it. And I came to the realization on my own, and I'm very proud of this, that I don't have to be healed to start this podcast. Like, I don't have to get on here and offer you advice and, you know, tell you to do all these things. I could just sit here and talk about my life and talk about all the mistakes that I'm making and reflect on them. And this is really to make me feel safe. It is like my own little therapy session where I don't have to, you know, be conscious about like, oh, what time is it? Like an hour has passed already. Like, yeah, I will be conscious of like the time, obviously, but it's a space where I can just make my mistakes and admit to them and just learn from them. It's not something that I just have to know everything off the bat right away. And so that was also one of the reasons. A smaller reason was that, like, I don't know all the technical stuff. I don't know how to start a podcast. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to edit it. Girl, like, obviously not. Like, I've never done a podcast, so obviously I'm not going to know unless I do it. And honestly, in this era, in this day and age, you can learn how to do anything on YouTube or anywhere, you know? So this is like the easiest time to do a podcast. And, you know, I will only learn by doing. I don't know if this note taking thing that I have like bullet points here to make sure I don't lose my track of thought or whatever. Lose my train of thought and make sure that I say everything that I wanted to say and everything. And maybe I'll change my structure and maybe I will do something different and the setup will be different, everything. I don't know unless I try it. I'm still not really sure if this video that I'm doing right now is going to work. And I'm probably just going to have to end up doing audio by itself and not upload the whole video to YouTube and everything. And it's going to be stressful and everything, but I'm never going to learn unless I do it, obviously. And so those were all just excuses. But another part was that I was very afraid of starting this podcast because I was very afraid of giving up. It's the question of like, will I have the dedication to start this project and then see it all the way through? Because I just recently came to this realization, like yesterday or today. I realized that I see a lot of people starting projects on the internet and they don't see them all the way through. They'll do it for like a couple months and then they're like, yeah, I'm done. I think that has to do with like how quickly everything is in this day and age. Like, we have so much information coming at us at very alarming rates, and we can't possibly like grasp all of this at the same time. Like, you know, it's just a lot is being put out onto the internet, and we can get all of this information very, very quickly. And so we're very used to having this instant gratification. And so I feel like people that start these projects and they don't see them all the way through, it's because they didn't get that instant gratification. And I'm talking from my own personal experience when I started doing like YouTube and when I would do TikTok sometimes and everything. It's like, damn, what am I doing wrong? Like, if this person is doing it and I'm seeing that they're doing it, I see that they're capable of doing it and they have success and they have riches and everything, like I want to do that too. So why is it not working? And not having that instant gratification can be very discouraging because obviously we're human beings. We want validation. Even if you're like the most secure person in the world, you still like getting validation from people. And so I feel that I'm very afraid to start this because, you know, this microphone costs money and doing everything is costing time, and maybe I'm not going to have the most time and everything. And it's like, will I be able to see this all the way through? Well, I'm not going to really know unless I do it, right? And this camera that I am filming on, I bought it when I was trying to do my YouTube channel. You know, I was like, I'm going to invest in this dream of mine and this goal of mine. And that did not work. And this camera cost a lot of money. And sometimes I think like, damn, what a waste. But now I'm using it for something else. And it's all like an investment, and it's very scary, and I'm not going to know. Like, I know that when I first upload this, it's going to be very like weird, and I'm going to look I'm gonna listen back to this and be like, damn, why am I talking like this? I feel like looking at myself now, I'm like talking with my hands a lot. And obviously it's not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be perfect the first time I do it. And I can only learn by continuing to do it. But I just lost my train of thought. It's so bad. Basically what I'm trying to say is that, you know, it's a very scary thing that I know I'm not going to get that instant gratification, and it's going to be very, very discouraging. And who knows how long it'll take for me to actually find opportunities by doing this and, you know, using this to further my career or my creative skills or something, you know, using this as a way that will benefit me in the long run. That's going to take a lot of time, a lot of energy and effort. And that's a dedication that I just have to put in. And, you know, dedication and commitment is very scary for a lot of people, me included, but it's what I'm willing to do. So hopefully I actually do it, because practicing this podcast hours before and then actually doing it now, it's actually a very, very fun. It's a lot of fun. It's very surreal that I'm actually here, like, damn, I actually bought the microphone that I've been wanting for like a year, and I'm actually recording myself, and I actually wrote down the notes, and I'm actually doing everything. I have everything planned out. It's crazy. And it is making me like really happy, because it's like now I have something to fill in my time, because I feel like I waste a lot of my time just being on social media and doing nothing and waiting around for other people. And it's like now I can focus on myself, hopefully, and I'm very excited for it. So, what am I taking away from this low point in my life? Well, I am very sure that I am sad. I do feel sad, and I do feel like I don't have much energy to do anything anymore. Like, I just finished classes the fall semester, and near the end of the semester, I was going to class, coming back, and taking a nap. I would take a nap all the time, and you know, naps can be very good, very yummy, love that. But those naps were not the good ones. You know, I would wake up feeling even worse about myself. It was basically just an escape, because I did not want to like be in the present moment, and I didn't have any happiness coming from anywhere in my like personal life concerning like me only. You know, it was always depending on other people. And so now that my classes have started, it might get a little worse, because I've been going to sleep at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. I've been waking up at like 11 a.m., 12 p.m. So compared to like me a year ago that was waking up at 7 a.m., that feels really shitty. So I am still in this very weird stage in my life and the low point, and that could just be because I don't have anything to wake up for in the morning. And that doesn't mean I'm always going to be like a very late sleeper, late riser. But that's just where I am right now, is that I do feel sad. I just had a mental breakdown before starting this podcast, the podcast episode, and I do feel very tired most of the time. But I also think that I am very stubborn. And it might partially be my fault that I am this sad. So it's like when people try to cheer me up and offer advice, I am so pessimistic. Like, roles reversed, I've been able to cheer people up and I've been able to offer people and my friends advice, and it actually makes them feel better. And they're like, love you, appreciate you, you're so good with your words, you made me feel so much better. And I'm like, that's what I do. But then they try to cheer me up when I'm sad. Girl, forget about it. I am super pessimistic. There is no shining light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I'm just done. I'm over it. It's really bad. And something that I wanted to pull up was this text message that my friend sent me back in the good old 2020. Great year. I was basically telling him, like, complaining to him about everything going wrong with my life, as I usually do. That's usually the case when people ask me, like, hey, how are you? It's been a while. I'm like, it's going terrible. But I was just talking to him about whatever was making me upset. And he said, actually, preface before I say that, I think I was mostly talking about how hard it is to cheer me up. And so he was like, can I be honest with you? And he said, sometimes I don't like to be cheered up because deep down, to an extent, I enjoy my anger/resentment because it gives me the false feeling of control. So it can be easier. I can sometimes make up my mind not to try to feel better about something. And the way I responded to that message, like 2 years before, like when he actually sent that to me versus like now, is that I don't think it gives me control. I don't think it gives me control, forcing myself to be upset and everything. I just feel like when I do hit this low point, it feels like nothing I do is going to change anything. It feels like no matter what effort I put into it, nothing's going to change. And it gets really bad. My mind goes to very, very dark places, as I said. And it's like sometimes I feel like I am forcing myself to be upset about something. And so if I have this mindset of like, nothing I do will change anything, so I end up doing nothing, and then nothing really ever changes in the first place. But what happens when I put in the effort and then something actually changes? Well, then I have to sit here, I have to come on here and be like, my bad, it was my fault, I'm the problem. Who knew that if I actually put in effort into something and try to make myself feel better, that I would probably end up feeling better. Oops. Because honestly, it's like so much easier holding other people accountable for how you feel and blaming other people. Like, if everybody just acted the way I wanted them to and acted the way that makes sense to me, then I would feel much better about myself. But instead, it's like you have to hold yourself accountable for how you feel. Obviously, that makes sense. But that's kind of like embarrassing, because it's like, okay, if you have to hold yourself accountable for another person, it's like, fine. Yeah, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to make you feel that way. My bad. But then it's like, for yourself, like, you're supposed to know yourself better than anyone else. And you couldn't figure out what made you happy. You couldn't figure out how to make yourself feel better. And turns out it was all on you. Damn, that's kind of embarrassing. And maybe not. Maybe it's not embarrassing and I'm just talking out of my ass right now. But I think it is a very different dynamic of like, damn, I actually have to hold myself accountable. Like, it's nobody else's fault but mine. It's so much easier to blame other people. It's like, you're the reason I feel shitty, so act better. But no, at the end of the day, it's how you are. and how you act towards yourself. And so like the way other people will treat you and act around you is not going to affect you, which is a lesson that I am still trying to learn. Also, I hope that I am not talking too fast and enunciating all my words. My bad. I will also work on that. But anyways, it's easier to blame everyone. And that's something that I'm still trying to work on, still trying to work on making myself happy and not having to worry about how other people treat me. And it's hard because it takes a lot. It takes a lot to like try to separate yourself from everybody else and be like, yeah, it's me. I'm the problem. Taylor knew what she was talking about when she was talking about anti-hero. But anyways, my final thought will be that I'm going to start to try to take accountability for how I feel and start to try to put effort into making myself happy and trying not to let myself fall into this very deep funk of sadness, because I can be like that. I will have a very negative thought and rest of my day is ruined. I fall into the deep hole of every like toxic thing that I do to myself, which again I can talk about in a different episode. But at least I'm going to highlight the word try here. At least I can try, because all any of us can really do is try, because it's very hard to actually do something. And at least putting the effort in, you can at least say, hey, I tried to do it. And maybe it didn't work out this time, but that doesn't mean it's not going to work out another time. And it's going to take a lot of work, but I am willing to do it. And I'm saying this hoping that I actually do it, because again, I can talk out of my ass and come on here and be like, yeah, I'm going to be so much better. I'm going to actually be mindful of when I'm sad and not put myself in these situations and blah, 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 blah. But girl, let's be honest. I'm going to keep making the same mistakes. And all I can really hope is to learn from them eventually. But like I said, I'm going to try. Oh my gosh. And that was my first episode of the SOLITA podcast. That's very crazy to think about. It's so wild. Wow. I feel so good and very scared because now I'm at the outro. So if you liked the podcast or you're at least a little interested, intrigued, make sure to follow. I don't really know how it works yet because this is the first episode. I haven't published anything, but if you can, follow the podcast, especially on the social media that I have made for the podcast. It technically only has one official social media, which is Instagram at SOLITAPod. But I also have my own personal Twitter and TikTok and stuff like that. So hopefully that will also be linked in the show bio. If not, I'll also just write it into the episode description. But anyways, the Instagram, like I said, at SOLITA Podcast. I have my own personal Instagram at _Katie Torres, KATHIETORRES. And my Twitter and TikTok are both at Y2Katie, Y2KATHIE. Just making sure because, my name gets misspelled a lot. But yeah, I hope this was somewhat beneficial for you because I think my depressive era is going to end very soon after I publish this, because I did not think that I would actually manage to do it. But anyways, thank you for listening. Love you. Bye.